All right, so I think it would be fun today. It's been a while since I make a video. I've just been really heads down with a lot of sessions, been juggling around projects at the same time, in total like 5 or 6 tracks. So it's been a long time since I posted anything. I do apologize, but I think it'd be cool to take a look at this song and just do like a full mix, together in the sense of just doing it one take. I don't think I'll spend any time editing this or anything like that. Just kind of go through it together and just whatever the length of video is what it'll be. Um, this is a song that I've talked about it before. I picked up the multi-track from a website that allows you to download multi-tracks for free. And if you're getting used to mixing, you're just kind of dipping your toes. It's really good to, just to kind of get the basics down. So this is a song that I really like. It's very Paramore-esque. If you know anything about me, I'm a sucker for anything like that. So let's go ahead and mix this thing. Let's let you know how it's looking right now. The only thing I have active are like my buses. I do have the kind of initial set of plugins, the presets that I use, but other than that, and nothing has really been touched. Um, so we'll kind of just go over from this starting point, just because these are the buses that I would realistically start with on any given project, and then just kind of take it from there depending on what the song needs. And if not, this video would be like 5 hours long. So if I had to do everything exactly from scratch and the editing and the panning and all that. So I did do some leveling and some panning and things like that, just to kind of get things a little bit sorted. I also bounced some Melodynes already because, again, you have to wait for it to transfer each and every time. So just a lot of tedious work. This is by no means a tutorial, and this is by no means to set an expectation of how long it should take you to mix. It could take you a lot longer. It could take you a lot shorter. This is just what I kind of did on this song. So let's listen to it, how it's sounding right now as is. So the levels are all over the place, and the eagle-eyed among you might notice, where the heck is the kick? It does not exist. This is just the click of a trigger. I'm guessing they just kind of put it right on top of the batter head, or what happened here, I don't know. Quite frankly, the tracking on this song was pretty much all over the place. You can tell that maybe they just didn't know what they were doing. That's fine. I'm not knocking anyone for that. But we can get it to sound a lot better. And this band actually no longer plays together. I reached out to them to get their permission to post this on YouTube. I see other people that have posted tutorials, so I figure it should be fine. So let's just let's get into it. Okay. So, as always, the mix bus on the drums is the NLS, just to add a little bit of drive. I don't really touch it too much, just a little bit of drive in the mic. And then the SSL comp from Waves. This is just to kind of mix it all together. That is always on all my drum buses. Sometimes then I'll add the JST clip if I feel I need to rein in some volume and kind of maybe give it a little bit more. I think in this one, I don't end up doing that, but we'll see where we go. So let's start off with this kick. Let's see what's going on here. You'll notice there's two. One is sub, and this should technically be called trigger, but I'm just treating it as my kick mic. So what I'm doing here is put this one. The very first thing I do with anything drums related, I turn on silencer just to get rid of, those snares in the background, the toms, the clickiness of the cymbals, just to get the pure clean trigger. And then I'm using trigger 2. I'm using a preset from Spinlight Studios with the Truth Canon preset. And then I kind of just tweaked it a little bit to taste. And that sounds like this. So obviously already a lot better. Um, you always need to tweak a little bit here just to make sure you're not getting any false triggers. You know, there's a couple of little tiny snares and things like that that kind of escape um, the silencer, since the actual transient that we're looking for and the other things like the snare, they're so close because it was just not recorded properly. It's hard to get a good trigger. Luckily, I was able to get it, playing consistently and just putting the truth on there because I really like the sound of it. And then we'll process the heck out of it in the kick bus later. And then what I did over here for the sub, just to add some thumpiness, what I did was I put another instance of trigger 2. This one I'm not using too much. I wasn't too preoccupied of what kick I was using because I'm using Logic's sub bass plugin. This is free inside of Logic, and I took away all the dry signals, so I just wanted the thump, the sub information, just to give some a little bit extra thump in there. This is just to kind of, if someone is listening in a subwoofer, just get that little extra kick in sub. Obviously, we don't want to overdo it because that can sound really wonky really fast, and you won't notice that on regular monitors. You do need to check out a sub. I've been meaning to get a sub myself, just not been able to do it. So the very first thing that I'm running here is Saturn 2. This is just a kind of default warm tape setting. This is just adding a little bit of saturation and distortion. These things will add up at the end of the mix, and we'll kind of get back to that a little bit later, how to really drastically change the sound of a mix. By just adding a couple tape plugins here and there, it can really change the sound of it. Going into CLI 76, as usual, just to get it a little bit more aggressive. Pro Q3, just to scoop it out. And then we finished off with JST clip. Let's hear what that's sounding like now and see if we need to adjust. So that's sounding really good. Nice and punchy, nice and thumpy. Has a low end. Scoop out the mids always, so it doesn't sound boxy, and has, I feel, the appropriate amount of click in there. So I don't really think that I need to touch it based off of just the preset that I have. Rock kicks are pretty universal. You just kind of have to gain stage them essentially. But since we're working with a trigger, it's not as difficult in that sense. So that's the kick. We'll get into the snare reverbs in a second. But in the case of the snare, if you follow me on Facebook, you might have seen this. This snare was only recorded with the top. So we have no chain. We have no chain. We have no rattle. I do have a plugin somewhere around here. Snare Saver, I think it's called. Snare Buzz. Whoopsie. Let's see. Yeah, so we have that Snare Buzz. This is one way that you can fix this, just to kind of emulate some rattling. Let's see how we can get that fixed here. So that's already going to make your snare sound a lot better. Ideally, you have the snares double tracked or up and down. If you're not doing that, you really should be. Again, I'm just kind of assuming when they recorded this, they were probably kids. They didn't know a whole lot. They just kind of went with whatever they knew. It's not a bad thing. So what we ended up doing here is, let's go ahead and move this to the front. First and foremost, silencer, you know this. Just to get it nice and quiet. Now with transient shaper, I do change this around a lot. It depends on the genre. In rock, you want the snare to be very punchy, but at the same time have quite a bit of sustain. So let's see how this looks like as is right now. So that's sounding pretty good. We are going to emphasize this a little bit with triggers in a second here, but that's already sounding a lot better. We just need to do some EQ. Sorry, my throat is just weird today. Like I am just having trouble salivating. It's weird. So what I'll end up doing here is just to kind of EQ it then to taste. We'll see what that looks like here. So what I'm doing here is just adding a little bit of high, same with the kick, just scooping the boxiness, and then I find the snare note where it's tuned to, and just give it a little extra push there just to add a little bit more attack, and then the low cut like right below the actual note just to cut out anything. In this case, we already cut it with the gate, so not a whole lot to do there, but that's what. So that's already sounding a lot more like a snare. So, and in the case of trigger, we went with, I think, the Truth again, with the Canon from Spinlight, just because I really like this snare sound. It sounds super good. Let's listen to that alone. And then we mix that into taste. So in a recording like this where the snare or anything wasn't recorded properly, I'm okay with replacing. I try to keep the performance and just kind of add into it, but since the recording wasn't great, I'm okay with replacing. I didn't go fully replacing this part, but whatever this regular natural snare lacked, I just kind of added it with the trigger. In this case, like a lot more body, a lot more thumpiness, and some rattling on the chain, of course. In terms of the bus, this never changes. This is just like my snare bus. Same Saturn, same CLA 76. This Pro Q that I don't even know why that's there, to be honest. The JST clip, I do always add this to the snare, and I always have it at around here, the 3 to 4 dB mark. I think, train the trim at -6. I'll just kind of play with this depending on the actual volume of the snare. This will pretty much be one of the things the only things that I change. And I actually always add a little bit of fresh air, just to give a little bit of air and help the snare cut a little bit, so I don't have to give it as much volume. It helps to cut a little bit in the mix. In the case of rock, you really want your snare to be nice and present. So let's listen to the kick and snare together. So to me, that's already sounding really good, or a lot better. Good, I guess, is subjective. Let's move on to toms. So these toms, they weren't horrible. They were just recorded again, just not ideally. So I don't know if you heard that, but there's definitely some distortion. They were definitely too close to the mic, and he might have been hitting them a little bit too loud. There's just massive amounts of bleed. So let's actually, in toms, I start off backwards. I start off at the bus. In this case, I went with a similar curve that I do with the kick, just because toms are kind of similar in that regard. Um, and then I just emphasize the actual transient, scoop out the boxiness, and add a little bit of attack. So this is how it sounds like with just EQ. So super mid-rangey, so we had to change that. CLA 76 and JST clip. We'll get rid of that nasty bleed in a second. Okay, so this is what we're doing, and then on the actual toms, silencer, boom, get silencer. It is worth every penny. So what I actually ended up doing on these were just some instances of the SSL native plugin, the drum strip, on Tom 1 and Tom 2 setting respectively. Just this is kind of where, again, I always start off with toms, just to kind of get them in the ballpark and just tweak them a little bit. I might have actually just left this as is. So something like that, that sounds good. I feel like toms are, I always say this, like a kind of tricky thing to get right, so easy to get wrong. They might have too much body, they might get in the way of the rest of the kit. So I like to just have them nice and snappy, not a whole lot to them. If I wanted to just give them a little bit more sustain, I can do that with the transient shaper. This is the one I use is from Soft2 because all transient shapers are okay. So let's give them a little bit more sustain, see what we can get out of them. So it does bring up a little bit of that noise again, but it's so low in the context of the mix that's not gonna matter. Tambourine there, just keep it low. Don't do a whole lot with it. This is a reverse cymbal that they added. All I did was add some reverb to it. Nothing flashy. Just wanted to, just wanted to get it a little bit of flavor there. That's totally subjective and up to you. But those little creative details are what's going to set your mix apart. So don't be afraid to include them. Obviously, talk it over with the artist, see what they like. In this case, it doesn't matter, but it's always good to add some flair here and there. In terms of overheads, I didn't do anything on the actual bus, since in this case it's just a stereo overheads. There's no hats. It's all in the overheads. And in this case, I just decided to work on it. Since it's just one channel, just do it directly on the actual track. As always with overheads, cutting at around 200-300, just to get rid of any rumble. Saturn, I actually like to use my overheads in this driven tube amp preset from Saturn, just to kind of give them a little bit of extra push on that, a little bit of grit. So let's see how that sounds like. So just adding a little bit of harmonic distortion in there just to kind of get them sitting nice and spicy. And then obviously crush them a little bit with the CLA 76. Around 5 dB gain reduction. And then Pro Q3, I think I just added this after the fact just because I heard something that I didn't like here. Yeah, just to mellow them out a little bit. Just so you can get them with enough volume in the mix without it being too much. In terms of a room, there was no room mic. So when you are faced with this dilemma, this is what you're going to do. You're going to copy your overheads. And a lot of people go really super in depth in this. They make like custom EQ curves and automation and all that stuff. I like to keep it simple. Just add reverb to kind of simulate a room. We're not looking for a like big hall simulation. We're looking for a room simulation on this. So what I went with was Pro R. What's important here is that you want to make some pretty aggressive cuts at around 200 and around 10,000 hertz. This is just going to get rid of that super rumbly information, that super high information, and make it sound a little bit more like a room. In this case, Pro R has a drum studio preset. In this case, since we're modifying the overheads to sound like a room, the mix will be at 100 because we don't need any dry signal because we have the actual overheads in there. So this is what that sounds like. So it's just a regular overhead. So you can kind of get that faux room, as I always put here, and it can sound pretty convincing. So let's listen to this drum as is. Let's put on the reverbs on there. Yeah, we have a little. I think we were supposed to have a mono room, but it never happened or something. I don't know. I think this is more like the trash mic. So let's take a listen to how that's sounding over now. So overall, not bad. I don't like the sound of those cymbals. They sound kind of tinny to me. But you know, again, it is what it is. If this is what you're handed, what's important is that you can make it work. And I know we spent around 20 minutes on the drums. All the other instruments should be a lot quicker, except for the vocals. There's a lot of things to discuss there. But last thing I want to talk about is the crusher. Or the parallel compression. Wow, I am just all over the place today. I am using the SSL native again. I'm using it on the parallel energy. Since this is nice and crushed, I just kind of put that in there and then just put it to taste in terms of the balance. So let's hear that. So just give it a little bit of that parallel energy, and then I just put a regular exciter there just a little bit of harmonic distortion. In terms of the bass, so this bass bus is actually where I have kind of landed, at least for kind of rock-ish type of bass. I'm starting always with the Saturn default setting, the C4. This is just to kind of subdue anything below around 100 hertz or so, 150 hertz. I think this is 90, sorry. Around 90 hertz and below, we really want to tame that down because we don't want it to get in the way of the kick. So you can get a similar effect by just side chaining to the kick. This will accomplish it just in the preset form. Um, if you like that form factor. This 2000 where I am getting rid of, that's usually getting rid of a little bit of pick attack. Especially with rock, you can get a little bit of twanginess in there and that little of the pick attacking pretty aggressively. This dude is playing pretty aggressively, so we really wanted to kind of cramp down on that limiter to just pin the bass in place. And our bass is what I've started adding not too long ago to this bass bus preset. I PP as in pop punk. So let's listen to the bass just without the actual bass processing, just with the bus. So it gives it that nice, growl quality to it that I just love the bass sounding like that. I actually ended up running this through Parallax. You definitely don't have to. You can run rock bass not without necessarily using distortion. This to me sounded a bit like an Ampeggy type of situation that he was using. It kind of seemed to have that kind of Ampeg tone. Whether or not he was using it, or maybe that kind of more Fendery. At any rate, it was a clean bass. That's fine. I just, in my decision, wanted to give it a little bit of extra grit. So as always, we went with Parallax. I just got the version 2 the other day that they released it, the X version. Now that you will be able to use it in the Quad Cortex, which I recently bought. I haven't made a video on it. I will. Just to kind of discuss that a little bit later. Pro Q3, just getting rid of weird resonant frequencies, just making sure that this doesn't get lumped in with the kick, so we can avoid that. And then CLA. So let's listen to how these sound like while we put them in. So nice and crunchy, not heavily distorted, super mega ultra distorted bass, because it's not metal. Then Pro Q3, gotta get rid of a little bit of that rumbliness, because in isolation it sounds great, but with the kick it's just horrible. I like to really clamp down on the bass. So with the drums. So if you wanted them to sit a little bit better, you can definitely 100% just run any type of compression and do a parallel comp. So you can like put a bus, the kick bus in my case, and just go for a couple of dB of gain reduction. Just to duck the bass a little bit, just so it doesn't get in the way of the kick. All right, guitars. So this one had a bit of a weird situation with the guitars. Some of them were amps, some of them were kind of clean, but with some effects on them. So again, just an overall a little bit weird recording. Guitar 1, this is kind of like a rhythm. No, like the clean one, yeah. Yeah. So in terms of, ooh, this is muted. So went with like a super clean sound. I ended up distorting it a little bit. And then these are the same guitars, just the different takes. I'm calling this kind of like lead-ish guitars. So I do have a preset for leads. I always run them through the Sheps. This is just, again, same as with the one in the kick or the drum bus, just to add some harmonic saturation here and there. The L1 limiter, just because these types of performances, you really want to pin them into place. This might look super aggressive, and it is, but guitar is an instrument that you really want it to put it in its place in terms of the mix. You don't want it to be all around, because it can get really dynamic really quickly, and we really want to kind of clamp it into place, just pin it right there so it won't move. Archetype Nolly, I just wanted a little bit of extra grit, so I guess you could say, dual amped it or whatever. And in this case, since it's going high, I just got rid of any rumbliness. So let's listen to how that sounds like now. And it's the same on both channels, by the way. So we're going through Nolly. We are being pretty aggressive with the delay and the reverbs. The amp itself is the almost cleanest amp that they have on the sorry, my nose is heckin' itchy today. I am just all over the place. Because again, it's already kind of like an amp tone type of thing, so I did not want to run it through just heaps and heaps of distortion. It's just going to sound like trash. So this is a preset that I have, and what I did was just dial it in a little better, because this is more suited for the DI. So it has maybe a little bit more gain. So what I did was just whack up the bass and the mids just to give it a little bit of body, even though we ended up cutting a lot of it, but just so it won't sound extra thin on the way in. And then we are just using the 57 on this one, yeah. And that sounds like that. I just made the same preset for both and just kind of added them in there. In terms of the rhythm guitars, so it actually has 3 rhythms, because one of them is like a lead type of thing, but it's doing a very rhythm type, locked in with the rhythm. So they're not super different. I believe that's this one. Yeah, so these 3 amps were obviously very distorted, so we did not want to run them through the archetype or any type of bass or any type of amp, since we would be running an amp into another amp, and that would just be way too much. So what we did here was I have a kind of starter guitar strip. This is not my strip. I took that from another YouTuber, Christian Hale. I want to say if I'm remembering that, just random by memory. It's kind of like a combination of what he uses and also what another YouTuber uses. Going into an API, just doing a little bit of cutting and boosting. The C4 here is just for any palm mutes. You can put this in here. It even has a little preset guitar chugs. If we have a chug, I think there's only one portion of this guitar at some point in the song where it chugs a little bit. That just helps to scoop it down there so the chugginess won't just be in your face. It's good to have it there, and if you don't use it, you don't use it. The Pro Q3, just wanted to get rid of the rumbliness, and I actually didn't high pass it. Now that I'm looking, can definitely add one here so as to not get any sizzle, although I think I'm getting rid of those in the bus. I might not be, I don't know. There's Pro Q3 there, so probably. So just turn on Pro Q3 there. Then the 3A, just compressing it a little bit more. The JST clip, and my new favorite plugin, OTT, Over the Top. This thing, it's just listen to it. it just doesn't. It just gives you the guitar sound. I don't know what over the top does. It's like a multi-band compressor. It has upwards and downwards, but it just does something, man. But it. I have heard that it gets a little bit of flack just because the name would imply it's very over the top. And if I were to just leave this at 100% the depth and the upward and downward, it would just sound like trash. But at the end of the day, that can be said about any plugin. If you have a plugin where if you're running a compressor and you're running the max input, it's going to sound maybe not great. So it's not the plugin's fault that maybe people don't know how to use it. So I think that is like, I'm putting that at the end of every single guitar chain that I have. The saturation, what it's adding is like, to me is like great. Like that's amazing. To me, it just sounds amazing. These are all the same presets, by the way, except for I think the C4 is not on this one just because I guess I didn't add it. In terms of, let's see here, these other guitars were more kind of clean. Yeah, these are just kind of bips and bops around the song. Let's see what this guitar is up to. So this is kind of like a little section where I just wanted to give it a little bit more flavor, just give it a bit more oomph. Just kind of make it sound a little dirty and gross, intentionally so. So if we put the rest of the instrument, again, whether or not that was the original intention of the artist, I'll never know. They broke up many, many years ago, but I think those little tiny creative decisions where you add the same guitar track but like reversed, or you add one with like heaps and heaps of distortion like in a parallel comp type of way, or I don't know, like chopping it up or whatever. Those types of things will really elevate your productions and get them really on the next level. That's what I've been experimenting with. I can definitely vouch for it. Just be creative, and it's going to work out. So we are at 40 minutes almost. Let's take a look at what the voice is doing. This performance, it's got a lot going on. I had to do a lot to kind of get it sitting well. Obviously, the very first thing, just correcting it. There was a lot of breath, so I actually ended up using deep breath. I don't like using this plugin at all. I only use it when I absolutely have to, just to kind of get rid of some breaths, because I can get rid of them before the line, but there were some weird kind of breath placement issues where it just overall didn't sound great. Maybe the singer just needed to maybe breathe a little bit differently or whatever. Again, I'm just kind of, my goal, and if you're going to download this from the website, which you definitely should, and experiment, do it and take it as an example of, let's say you want to work with an artist, you're working with a local band. They don't have the best gear. They don't have the best recording techniques. We want to get the best possible, but, one of the things that you might notice if you watch a lot of mixing videos like I do is a lot of the times the straight stem that the mixer gets can sometimes sound better than your finished mix, because you have world-class musicians. Like if you watch people that work with CLA or whatever, Chris Lord Alge is a world-class mixer. He's not just going to work with your local Tim from down the street, right? But you are going to work with Tim from down the street, and Tim from down the street doesn't have perfect timing. He doesn't have perfect pitch. So I think you should really download as many of these as you want and just kind of take them as they are and just kind of experiment with them to how you can get something that maybe wasn't ideal, it wasn't in the best situation, but how you can make it sound better, and how you will test your skills as a producer, and let you know what tools you might be missing. For example, the drums, like I use silencer just because I don't have to spend minutes, more than literally a few seconds per drum part. Um, you don't have to buy it. It's like 50, $60. If you don't have the $60, that's fine. You don't have to buy it. But if you want to get into this, you really should be looking on how you can invest. Obviously, be wise with that. Don't just buy every plugin, but things like that, they'll really make a difference. And this is ultimately going to help you. I'm getting off topic. This video is super long. I'm not going to edit it. I'm going through the LA 2A because this is my favorite leveling amplifier, because I'm basic like that. Went through the Pro DS, Pro Q3, just because I love it dearly. I just went to kind of find some frequencies that were kind of harshiness, that you'll see in a moment. The Pro MB, just again on the top end, just to really clamp down on it. And then at the end, good old fresh air. So let's listen to this voice without and with.
Take a look around, see the houses we build. They are falling down around us. Bricks will slowly crack, and fate will soon show itself. I want us stuff from caving and stuff from falling down. We're falling.
So that is just the processing on the vocals. You'll find that, at least I find, most of their instruments will only need tweaks here and there to get them to sound really good. And in the case something like the guitar, something like OTT will just kind of do your job for you. I find that vocals can vary so wildly, and again, we're working with people here, and they might not have the best mic, they might not have the best technique, and working with them to kind of get them to sound nice and professional is going to be your job. So taking an example like this, again, this is not me knocking the person singing. She seems like a lovely lady, but maybe this is an example of how you test yourself as a producer with a not perfect take, not perfect breathing technique, not perfect vocals, and getting them to sound good.
Take a look around, see the houses we build. They are falling down around us. Slowly crack, and fate will soon show itself. I want us stuff and stuff from falling down. We're falling down.
I want you to notice that there's a lot of cuts here, right? Why did I do that? So this performance was like all over the place. Like we had some super, super low section where she was basically whispering, and then right after she would just jump and attack the mic. So with something like that, no compressor is going to help you. No limiter is going to help you. Anything that they do to try to control that is just going to be, you're going to make the compressor work too hard. It's probably not going to sound right. So what did I do, and what should you do? I have the compressor tool handy, and yeah, here we go. For example, here, it's all these were tweaked, I can assure you. I don't know why they're saying 0, but many of them, -3 dB, -3, -5, -2, -1. A couple of them were a lot more than that, and this was just an effort to get the vocals sitting consistently, hitting a consistent volume without any processing. So when you go to process it, you're not just trying to deal with all of that, because it's just going to sound, again, it's going to sound weird, it's going to sound off, and you don't want it to. You want it to sound nice and stable, right? So in terms of the vocals, like I mentioned, always I use Melodyne. You don't have to. You can use anything other. Grey Leon is free. The deep breath, just for a couple of breaths that I just needed to get rid of. LA3A, 2A, sorry. DS Pro Q3 and Fresh Air. And that is pretty much copied, with the exception of noise suppressor there. I don't know why that's on that vocal. That's not doing anything useful. Same thing on this one. This one you'll notice is a little bit weird. It has some effects baked into it, because this is kind of like a bridge part, where she started singing kind of like glissando notes. And again, creative decision. I just didn't want it to sit so up front, so I kind of made it a little bit lower in the mix to make it more of an effect. So this is what that sounds like.
Screaming, you hypocrite, missing puzzle piece. Come and fill me in. The devil's words have spoken to me. You make me feel like this. You screaming, you hypocrite, missing puzzle piece. Come and fill me in. The devil's voice has spoken to me.
So again, this is a personal decision. If I were to do this with an actual song, I would kind of discuss it with the artist, see what they think. But if I were to just leave that on the main track, this is what it was. So to me, that was just too much. And it sounded kind of weird, right? It was like too in front. So what I ended up was just pushing it a little back with some reverb. I added some earlier, but listening to it now, I didn't really like it. And the best part of this, if you don't agree with that, that's fine. You don't have to do that. You could just put it all in one track and EQ it all the same, move it all the same. That's not really what I'm here to discuss. This is just what I did. This is what I thought. I think this was too present in the mix. And if I were working with the artist, I might have actually mentioned like, hey, maybe we can do something a little bit different. Maybe we can write a different guitar part or whatever. So I don't mind having those conversations with artists. If they push back, say like, no, we want that as is, then great, that it's your song, right? But always do your part. And if you don't like something, just let them know like, hey, don't tell them, hey, that's crap. But you can say like, hey, what if we do this other thing? How about this other whatever thing? So that's one way that you can kind of get the artist on your side and not just make decisions for them, but also not just blindly accept, because at the end of the day, these songs that people bring you, they're their babies, right? They know they're not going to have like 20 hit songs. So a lot of people are being very precious about their songs, so they don't want to change anything, because they don't know any better, right? And you could be able to elevate something. And for all I know, if I would have been the producer here, I put this and that would have been everyone's favorite part. Might not be your favorite part. It could be somebody else's favorite part. All I'm saying, be creative. Don't be ashamed to kind of push back a little bit on artists and kind of get them where you need them to be. In terms of the background vocals, what I usually do is I rarely go into the actual vocals to EQ them. I just kind of pan them and level them, and then I'll just do the general bus. So again, I had to use a little bit of deep breath here just because there were some weird breathing situations. Pro Q3, which went to another window for some reason. Pretty much the same as the vocal, just kind of notching out a couple of frequencies here and there. Since it's background vocals, we don't want it to be super in the way. CLA vocals on this particular one. Let's see what that sounds like. My favorite part is these oohs. Over here. So just adding a little bit of compression, making it a little bit tighter, adding a little low end. You don't have to use CLA vocals for that. That's just the one that I put in here. This is a neat little thing, the wow thing. It's based on some 90s thing that was some audio gear thing that I just saw the plugin. Thought it looked interesting. I was using it before the OTT on guitars just to get them a little bit of hi-fi sounding. Sounds like this. Yeah, and then fresh air at the end just to kind of brighten it all up. So without, doesn't sound bad.
The devil's words have spoken, so missing puzzle piece. Come and fill me in. The devil's words have spoken, so
And yeah, that's just what I ended up doing for this song. Again, the great thing about the internet is if you don't like what I did, you don't have to do it. This is just what I ended up doing on this particular song. Didn't end up changing too many things, just bips and bops here or there because I had practiced this with this one a long time ago. This is actually the very first song I mixed when I started. I saw this multi-track, downloaded it, did the mix in like a week. Took me like a week, and it sounded obviously very horrible. Now I can get something sounding a lot better. So if you like any of how this sounds, as always, you can hire me on Fiverr. If you're looking for someone to do your next music project with you, maybe you're saying, hey, I sound like that. I need someone to produce me, but I don't know if anyone has the talent. Well, I have the talent, and yeah,